Hi, this is Mika, and welcome to the Always Support Local podcast. Today we have a familiar face. I'm sure you've seen him around town. We have Diamond Garcia coming here to talk story with us. Very excited. So, Diamond, why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself, like where you grew up, what school you went to, how was it like growing up as a local kid here?
Well, I was born in the late 90s. I was born during the Clinton administration. I was that
Wow.
one. I was actually
that sounds old, but it's really not.
Yes, so I could say I was born in the 1900s. Was born during a pretty controversial time of Monica Lewinsky. So
some perspective.
So that's what I came into.
Wow, the younger generations may not know that. So if you don't know it, Google it or ask your parents.
That's right. Google it. YouTube. Your parents would know for sure.
Right.
But yeah, so was born and raised here. Grew up the leeward side mostly. Bounced back and forth the west side, Waipahu. Grew up in a public housing programs on food stamps and welfare. 5 kids, 6 kids really, and I'm the youngest out of all of them. And so we were all in this 2-bedroom apartment, mom and dad and grandma as well. And so it was pretty hectic growing up.
It's a busy house.
And then I would go with my grandma a lot too. And so was kind of partly raised by her. And so I kind of attribute most of my success and most of where I've gotten due to the values that she instilled, the church growing up, that faith foundation. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it. But yeah, so mostly with Waipahu, Waianae, Makaha, Manakuli.
Total local boy, see? 100%. For those of you who are wondering, 100%. So what inspired you to do what you do now? Like, was it always a dream? Was it always a goal? Was it always part of the plan?
No, actually. So I went to high school to Hawai'i Mission Academy. And so, of course, kids who are in high school, they're wondering what comes next.
Right.
I go to college and then what? And so I looked at, okay, there's college, this and that. But towards my junior and senior year of high school, I was already getting lots of speaking engagements to go travel the state and the country to kind of share my story as to how I got out of my family situation growing up to where I was then. And so I got lots of speaking engagements nationally, even internationally then. And
as a junior?
As a junior and senior in high school. So I got like some jobs during summer to go to Michigan, and then we traveled the country then speaking, training other young people, and then would come back. I had graduate, and then I went into full-time ministry. So did some teaching at some Bible colleges on the East Coast, West Coast, came back and was engaged in full-time ministry. Till 2018 when I ran for office. So that's how it all changed.
That's a shift. So if you want, I'm going to ask.
Sure.
If you want to briefly share, how did you get out of that situation for those of us who haven't heard your story?
No, yeah, for sure. And it's all thanks and glory to God, because what happened was raised, like I said, housing programs, food stamps, welfare. So with that life comes the normal problems, the normal upbringing, the normal friends and acquaintances. And so that was life for my family. There was crime involved. There were lots of police involved, family courts involved, drug rehabs involved, and all that stuff. CPS were involved.
That was your normal.
That was a normal.
Right.
Within my family, there were CPS involved for my siblings and all that. And so what happened was at 12 years old, I found a book actually called The Great Controversy. It was actually at my grandma's house. It was a book. It was an old 1970s copy of it. It was like super old, in a box called The Great Controversy. It was a book on prophecy, end time events, and kind of stuff like that. So I read it and was drawn towards like religion, faith, church. And so that next weekend I went down to our local church, and from that point on I kind of had that faith foundation instilled.
Wow.
And so that was the start of me saying, hey, I want something different than from where I see my siblings going. Right. I mean, I'm the youngest. I saw my older brothers going down that path of, family court, arrested, all this stuff in juvie. And so I said, man, I just don't want this for me.
Right.
And I know in this country, if people like Ben Carson, who came from public housing, can become the world's greatest neurosurgeon, hey, I can do something too.
Right.
And so I knocked on doors, actually. So starting from 12 years old, I knocked on doors, like 6 days a week.
Pounding the pavement.
So I literally knocking on doors, selling books. Well, it wasn't really selling. It was all on a donation basis.
Right.
But I would go door to door, share my story and say, hey, here, I'm a local boy, born and raised here, trying to get a education for myself. And so I'm just handing out this book on a donation basis to raise funds to go to a Christian school. And so did that from 12 years old till I was 17, 6 days a week, knocked on doors, sold books, and paid my way through Hawaiian Mission Academy.
That's amazing, because for you to be the youngest, you were like a fork in the road. You had a choice to go that same path, but something in you, the universe had something totally different for you to see that book, to change your mindset, to be like, I deserve more.
Yeah,
I deserve different, Doesn't mean you love your family less. It's like, I deserve a different life.
Yep. And so from that book, it was half history as well, and so it would share stories from like the not the ancient days, but like during the Dark Ages, and there were men throughout history like Martin Luther and John Wycliffe who would stand up to the powers of those days and stand for what they believed in, and they faced sometimes the ultimate consequence of dying, but they stood for what they believed in, and I think that instilled in me the value of, if you truly believe something is true, is righteous, it is right, you can never back down from that. No. You must stand by your beliefs. It's innate, I think. Right. And we all have that feeling like, okay, this is it. This is me. Yeah. This is what I'm here for. This is my legacy. This is my difference. Exactly. So that's amazing. Thank you for sharing. I mean, I know that was personal, but I was like, I always like to hear people's why and their personal journey and how they got to here. So when you started in office, what inspired you to do that? Because it's different from when you're doing ministry and speaking engagements to politics. Yeah. That's like on the other side of the spectrum. Yes, no, totally. And so I could not see politics in that plan, in that career path, in that plan at all. What happened was in 2018, was flying back from New Zealand, and got a call. Someone had saw my story on YouTube or whatever, and they asked me to speak at their local convention here. And so I did that. And from that convention, I had lots of people saying, Diamond, run for office, run for office. And I said, thank How old were you? But no, thank you. I was 21. Wow, just starting. I was 21. Yeah. It was because I ran for state senate District 21 at 21 years old. So that was a thing. You had to. Yeah. Well, what happened was I looked around. So I was, traveling, going here, going there, but always come home back to Nanakuli then. That's where I was living. And I would just look around and say, man, I mean, what kind of representation do we have? Right. And so I looked at my local state representative then, that was Andrea Tupola, who was a council member. She was then running for governor. So I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. A local from the west side, a woman, conservative, family-based, faith-based. She's running for governor. So I supported her, but then looked at my own district in Waianae and saw, hey, kind of different. Who's our senator? I mean, she's been here for a long time. It's time for change. And so I ran for Senate that year in 2018. Wow. We lost the election. We got like 41 or 42%. But for a first-time candidate, that's still amazing. For a first-time candidate who jumped in literally last minute, raised less than I think it was $25,000 against a 14-year incumbent. Then that was a pretty big thing to get over 40%. And so, but that showed you how ripe that district was for change. Right. And so, anyway, so that was 2018. Since then, I was working in Hawaii politics. Rep. Gene Ward from Hawaii Kai hired me on, was his chief of staff since 2019 until I won in 2022. So kind of, learned the ropes of the legislature, how the whole thing works, how bills are passed, how laws become laws, what to do, what not to do. But also from that point on, I got engaged in my local community, was a vice chair of our Nanakuli neighborhood board. And then in 2021, moved to Ho'opili, and they just so happened they redrew the district lines. Sharon Har, the current incumbent who was there for about, I think, 14 years as well, She had her DUI, and all that ended, and so here we are.
Yeah, that's a bad choice.
Yeah. Anyway.
Wow, that's amazing to end up someplace that's totally not on your radar, and it just kind of organically just kind of happened.
Yeah, I mean, doors open, and it's up to us to walk through them or not. So
right, you have a choice: door 1 or door 2.
Yeah.
Either way,
exactly.
either door, you get where you need to be.
Yes,
it's just the journey you take to get there.
Yeah.
So I know this podcast is not politics, but I wanted to bring up the long overdue bill because I think it's a conversation that needs to be had by everyone across the board.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it benefits the people of Hawaii, and that's the goal, right? Is to have people stay home, because I know I have friends of my own who we went away to school, we came back, but it's hard to be here.
Yeah.
We want to stay. It's our only home that we know, but at the same time, it's hard to stay. So a lot of people either move to Arizona, Texas, or Vegas are the 3 places that I know people move to. So, yeah. But so I'm glad that's a conversation that's being had. So if you had one suggestion to the people as far as that goes, what would it be? Because everyone has an opinion on that. You know what I mean? And which is fine. You can have an opinion.
Right.
But if people truly want to make a difference, truly want to be heard regarding that, or in anything that they want to be heard on, what would you recommend that they do?
To engage with your direct legislator. So if they're your state rep, your state senator, call them, show up at their office, make an appointment, sit down with them and talk to them and let them know, hey, you work for us. And us local people are struggling here in Hawaii. There's no way one person can literally live by themselves, working one full-time job. There's absolutely no way. And that should not be the case for local families. But unfortunately, most of these politicians don't listen to the people.
Right.
I mean, say, for example, there's been lots of issues that have come up in the past, and say there's like 3,000 people show up at the Capitol opposing a bill, these guys still pass it.
Right, which is nuts.
They're not really worried about public kickback, and the reason, and just to be brutally honest, the reason for that is because Hawaii has the lowest voter turnout nationwide. So because no one's voting, these politicians feel enabled and entitled to keep doing what they're doing, because, I mean, their careers are not at stake.
No.
And so the only way to really bring about change and force them to listen to these bills, have those conversations, is if the people rise up and literally threaten them with their positions. That's the only way. Because
even growing up, even because when I turned 18, I didn't vote here, but when I moved back, like, I can vote. And I think you have to make that effort. You have to take that time to learn about it. You know what I mean? All the information's out there. You just Google it real quick. And a lot of, you just have to do your due diligence, because I know we were talking earlier, like growing up, our parents talking story, they're grumbling about stuff that they don't like, but they don't do anything about it. And I think that's something that we need to be mindful of and teach our kids. You know what I mean? You should vote. It's a choice that you have. You know what I mean? It's our right to vote. And if we want to make change, that's one way to do it. Okay, I know we talked about the long overdue bill. And so if you want to, I guess, summarize the aspects of that and how it benefits us, because we're part of that people.
Yeah,
you know
for
what I mean?
sure. So the long overdue bill, it was a bill that was first introduced by Senator Awa. I had the House companion bill introduced on the House side. Same bill, and it basically says that that we're going to restrict the purchase of property here in Hawaii to residents. So we're going to ban foreigners and non-residents from purchasing real property here in Hawaii. That sparked lots of controversy. I think that's a good thing. I mean, I think having debate and dialogue is the purpose of the House of Representatives, is the purpose of the state Senate, is to have discussions. And I think here in Hawaii, there's so much Democrats in there that oftentimes that there is no discussion
Right.
because they all just obey leadership and vote yes on everything. But it's important to have, people come in and share their thoughts. If you're for it, if you're against it,
Right.
let's talk about it.
Right.
That's what the building is for. But unfortunately, immediately the Attorney General said that this is not constitutional. But really, I mean, it comes down to her opinion.
Correct.
It's just simply her opinion and the Democrats' opinion about this, because it has happened in other states.
Correct.
Florida's done it. I think Arkansas has banned foreigners from buying ag land recently. Some other states, I think it was like 23 states have passed laws banning foreigners from purchasing some kind of real property in their state. So it's possible. And I think Florida's law is currently being challenged in federal court, but all the other states are totally fine. And so there is precedent set to do this. It just comes down to the political will to do it. And unfortunately, currently under our AG here in Hawaii and Lopez and our governor, they just don't have the will to do it. So
how is it, and this is the question, that other states didn't find it unconstitutional, but ours did?
Yeah, well, that's interesting because these guys tell you, well, that's not constitutional, but yet banning guns is. And then, forcing vaccines on people against their will is constitutional.
Right.
But yet, sorry, we can't ban foreigners from buying your property. I mean, it's totally upside down.
Right.
And the average person sees right through it. So
Correct.
I'm hoping that people who see this, who see the BS in government, will actually exercise their right to vote, because the reason why these guys are so empowered to be so arrogant that way is because people don't vote. So I'm hoping people can start seeing their arrogance, and that will spark a revival in the hearts and minds of local residents to rise up and really take back our Hawaii. Because if we just sit back and don't engage, within 20 years, I mean, right now, there are more Hawaiians who live on the continent, right, than in Hawaii.
Right.
You wait 20 years, it'll be even smaller and smaller and smaller if we don't put a stop to the outside forces from buying our property. Now, there are lots of people who will tell you, well, the way to solve our housing crisis is build more homes. We can build more homes. That's fine. That's easy to do. But what's the purpose of building more homes if there's no guarantee that those homes are going to be occupied by local families? Correct. If you build a brand new neighborhood and then you market price them and then sell them, ain't no local resident qualifying for a $1.3 million mortgage.
At least none I know of.
Or me. And the interest rates currently are almost 9% under Biden. So it's crazy. And so the housing crisis needs to be addressed by the root cause. And the root cause is we've allowed the outside forces to come in and skew the housing market here, where locals just have no shot whatsoever. And so that's the root cause. Building more homes is not going to solve the problem. We have to make sure that all the homes we're building is going to be occupied by local families.
And I feel, and I can just only speak for myself because I can only speak for myself. I supported that bill because it just makes sense. A lot of things in politics don't make sense sometimes when you just outside looking in, but that made sense. And I feel a lot of people support that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like from young age to my grandparents, but you make a good point that we can grumble, we can be frustrated, but until we step up and do our part by voting or speaking out, nothing will change. So if we have to be that change. Yeah. You know what I mean? So side note, I encourage everyone to vote. Yes. And educate yourself and do your due diligence. So I know we talked about a whole number of different things, but so for those of you, Diamond will be back for part 2, part 3, because there's other things that I want to talk story with. Sure. And I don't want to make this like 3 hours long. So he will be back so we can talk stories some more about different topics about Hawaii and making Hawaii great again. So thank you for watching and tuning in. And I hope everyone is having a fabulous day. And remember,
always support local.
We'll talk to you soon. Stay blessed.